Hello everyone, my name is Vince, otherwise known as VT5491, and I'm the author of the multi-theme applicator, which allows you to apply multiple syntax themes to your Atom editor. And I've just released a new version that completely changed the way things work, added a lot of new functionality, and instead of writing extensive written documentation, I just thought maybe a quick introductory video might be a quicker way to sort of give everyone an overview. I'm going to try to make this really quick, and we'll get into how to use it very shortly. But I sort of prepared up a presentation of some of just the points I wanted to make sure I didn't forget to talk about. So here's the release history. It's been available since about May of last year, although the first really functional version was this version 0.09. And that was working fine up until very recently when Atom 1.13 came out, when they removed the shadow DOM, which is something that I utilized a lot to do the theming. So I had to basically rework a lot of it, and I also added a lot of new functionality. So that's what this new versions 1.0 and 1.1 about, which we're going to cover. So before we get into a demo, I want to talk a little bit about how it basically works. I assume that maybe a lot of people are using Atom Editor are probably familiar with CS cascading style sheets. So basically, one of the great things about Atom is it's really has it's a web browser inside, full-blown Chrome, web browser, along with Electron to make it work as a desktop app. So it uses cascading style sheets to style stuff, and it is a pure CSS solution. At one point in time, I thought they were doing something special, but if you can do anything with CSS in a web page, you can do it with Atom. So basically, the mechanism that I'm doing here is down here, let's say on a target scope, let's say at an editor, I add a special class which starts with MTA and has a timestamp, and I just basically a unique class, and then I load in the fairy, in this example, the fairy floss CSS, and I basically add this class onto it. Normally, when you load in let's say the fairy file of the fairy floss CSS, it wouldn't have this class. It would just say atom.texteditor. So that would apply to all Atom text editors. So I qualify dynamically as I load it in. I qualify it by the class name that I just assigned to whatever scope it is that we're applying to. And sure enough, it's that simple. It's a CSS property of a CSS. It just matches, so the scope is only applied to that one style. There is a potential, though, for what's called CSS bleed, what I'm calling bleed over. It's a cascading style sheet, so you have multiple style sheets. If a higher up style sheet has a rule that can take precedence over one that is closer in scope. Usually not, but if you have a higher up rule that is really narrow, and it can override one of your lower themes. So you sometimes like maybe the cursor is a weird color, and there's really nothing I can do about that. That's sort of a feature of cascading style sheets. You can't turn off that property, which leads me into my next point. Is before there wasn't this problem, because with before Atom 1.13 they used what's called a shadow DOM, and you can look it all up. But basically, what they did was they had the text editor, all the styling was hidden behind a shadow root, and a shadow root it encapsulates everything. So any style you apply is like, this is basically the root of it, and there's nothing else from above that can overwrite it. So you got really good isolation and no bleed over effect. The only disadvantage was that if you wanted to style something across all editors, you would have to do it 10 times if you had 10 editors open. There's a little bit of repetition, but actually, from my perspective as someone who's doing a multiple theme applicator, the shadow DOM was very nice. So I'm going to miss it. But I've reworked it to deal with the new way. So just a quick overview here about different types of scopes. So there's basically two categories. There's by container and there's sort of by content. So you have a session, okay, so even if you have 3 windows open, that's all one session. So Atom by default allows for only session level theming. That means if I have 3 physical windows of copies of Atom open and I change the theme to be black, all 3 of those windows are going to go black. So there's no granularity at all. So I add, and if multi-theme applicator, you have the option of doing it by window or by pane. So a pane is just basically when you split a window. And then there's another sort of class, which is by content. So you could say, I want this file to always be a certain theme, and whenever it opens, it'll always be that. Or you can do it by file type, like by JavaScript or whatever. So this is more based on what is in the editor, not where the editor is itself. So having said that, so there's 2 basic modes. One thing is to make clear is either you're going to sort of, you can apply any scope you want. You can mix and match as you like, but generally speaking, you're going to do window and pane together, or you're going to sort of do these 3 together. I wouldn't recommend applying window and pane and then doing it at the content level, because you're getting a lot of layering. So each time you lay down a CSS, you have a CSS here, a CSS at this level, a CSS at this level. You're getting a lot. You're going to get a potential for a lot of bleed over and merge conflicts. So, and generally speaking, you either like one or the other. If you're going to like doing it at this level, or you're going to like doing it at this level. So that's basically what I say on this slide. So now we're basically going to get into a demo of it. We're going to get into a demo mode. So here might be sort of for me a typical sort of setup for me now. I have found very few people who do this, but I really like my multiple desktops. So as you can see, I have one here on this desktop, I have another desktop down here, and I have another desktop over here. Now, for me, I mean, just look at when it's all the same. This is the Atom Dark theme, which is by default. I mean, look how hard it is to keep track of like where you are. I mean, they all look the same to me. So that's why one of the reasons why I really like to have theming. Okay, so now let's just show you the theming, the session level theming, which is the Atom one. So I just want to show to you that it's going across all the Windows themes. So let's just apply a syntax theme of something like, one dark. No, that's not. Let's do something obvious. Let's do Atom light. Okay, so this one has gone light, but this one down here is also light, and this one is also light. So you see how the Atom, if they would have just allowed you to do window level theming, I probably wouldn't have been good enough for me. I probably wouldn't have written this, but the fact that you just can't get any sort of distinction at all. So I'm going to change it back to Atom Dark because it's just probably what most people would be using as their default session level. And it's probably, generally speaking, not a good idea to have a light theme as your root level, and then if you could be playing a lot of dark themes, because if there is any overlays, an overlay from a white theme on top of a dark theme may not give you the right thing. And I'm kind of working this out myself because I didn't have this problem before with the prior version. So let's just put Atom Dark back on, and as you can see, it is now dark everywhere. So let's just start off with doing the container level theming, which is the window and pane. So there's two ways you can start it. You know, the simple, I mean, maybe the quote simple way would be just to go to the command palette, just basically type MTA, and you'll see this one called toggle, and Control-Shift-V is the key press. You can change the key press if you want. The only reason I picked it was because I have Emacs and VI key bindings, and it's very hard to find free key bindings. And I basically use V because that's my initial of my first name. So that kind of shows you how arbitrary that is. But I've now gotten used to doing Control-Shift-V. But anyways, so now it comes up, and this is the main dialog box. You can either close it at this point by hitting Escape, or bring it up again, or you could hit Control-Shift-V again if you want to close it, or you can just close it with this X if you want to close it without doing anything. So so up here is the main, all the themes that are available on your system. And you can also, if you happen to know, like let's say you know it starts with an F, if you type an F, okay, wait, when it comes up, if I type an F, you see it's going to zoom it down into the first one that starts with F. If I type A, it's going to show Adam Dark. If I hit A again, it's going to loop through all the A's. Okay, so I say C. That's very handy because it's very important that I almost always use the key bindings. So let's apply. Okay, let's try this comfy gray now. Now, you can see where I default it to be file level scoping. So this is where you control what scope you want it to apply at. So in this case, we're going to go window. So now you can just hit apply scope theme, or you can hit enter. Now notice how, yes, the whole window went comfy gray, but if we come down to these other ones, they're still black. Okay, you see. So this wasn't a session level, this was a window level. So if you're like most people and you don't have multiple windows, you probably aren't going to get much from the window anyways. If you do everything in one window, you're not going to be interested in the window. But if you're like me with multiple windows, it's a really nice feature. The next level is let's try pane level, and let's try Dracula. So I apply it. So now everything on this pane, and I should also mention that whatever you do, anything you do is always it's sort of referring to the currently active editor. So when I did this, when I said at the pane level, this pane was active, so it applied to that pane. So now you can see everything in the pane. Whoops. Okay. Close that. Let me open up another file. Files open. Let's open something like this. Okay, see, now also this is a feature that when you open up a new editor that was not previously styled as Dracula, it's smart enough to listen on the event and go, oh, I should apply the Dracula theme to it. And then if I open that same file over here, it should not be, see, it's themed as the pane over here. So that's the window and pane level theming. Okay, so now we're going to talk about removing themes. So let me just quickly, since I'm starting from scratch here in this segment, let me quickly apply some themes. Let's say at the window level, let's go Atom Light. Therefore, so all of them are being applied. Let me on the coffee files, we haven't talked about file type level yet, but let me apply a file type of fairy floss. So what that did was all coffees our fairy floss. This is the coffee. The one JS file we have here is still at the default window. And actually, here's a good example of some bleed over effect, how having that white window background has really kind of corrupted fairy floss. It usually looks a lot better than this. So that's this is actually illustrates my point of one of the reasons why you need to back off. So here we can back off at the window level, and that might help restore the way this is looking. So let's just try that. We come up to here, do a Shift Control V. Now when you do a remove, it doesn't matter what the syntax theme is. It knows what's in here in your active thing already. So it doesn't matter what you have specified here, but it does care about what you specify here. So if I say remove scope and I have file type, since this particular editor does not have a file type on it, if I say remove scope theme, see, nothing's going to happen because there's nothing to remove. So while it doesn't care about the theme, it does care about what the scope is. So since we want to remove the window level, let's remove the window, and see it's gone back to black now, which is the default. And now if we look at our fairy floss, see how much better that looks? Okay, so that's a case of where we had a bleed over effect, and that's where having, like for instance, maybe a black window level or session level can help you. On the other hand, if you're showing a light theme, then you probably want to have a light theme. So that's one of the points about why you need this surgical remove. It can come in handy. Oh, and the other point I wanted to make is you don't have to. Let's say I'm coming here on the file level, and I want to reapply another theme at the file type level. I don't have to remove the prior one first. You can keep applying other ones all day long. Let's put on Dracula, and you don't have to remove it. It's only in certain circumstances where you want to revert back to the other level. That's the surgical type of remove. Now, there's another type of remove under the command palette here. If you say Shift Control P and MTA, there's a couple other commands under here that might be interesting. One is the reset. Another one you might be interested in is the reset theme, refresh theme info. That's what you want to use if you added a new theme, because if you add a new theme, it won't show in the drop down right away until you cycle Atom or you run that command. Okay, but we're getting off topic. But as far as now to do a reset here, whoops, MTA, we're going to talk a little bit about this. So let's say you came in and you have you have a whole bunch of themes. Let's put on a pain level theme. Doesn't matter, nature green. You have a whole bunch of pains or themes, and you don't know where you are, or you don't, maybe you want to just go back to the root level, and you don't want to have to manually remove all of them. So you can come up. So instead, what you can do is you can come up and you go MTA and just hit reset. And it wasn't super clear, but everything is now back to Atom Dark. So that's sort of the super bludgeon get back to square one. Okay, sticky theming. So what I mean by sticky theming is basically persistent theming. A lot of times with Atom, when you apply a new theme or you install a new package or you upgrade, you have to cycle the Atom editor. So let's say you spend a lot of time and you have like in this particular case, you have a lot of different files up and you have just the right themes and the whole complicated, structure, and all of a sudden you have to recycle Atom for something. So let's just see what happens when you do that. So, you cycle Atom and you bring it up again. I'm running in dev mode, but that you don't have to. So when Atom comes back up, everything is going to just revert back to the default theme, which is one thing if you don't like multi-theme editor applicator, and that's one way you can just get rid of everything and just don't ever invoke Shift Control V. But the next time when you come in to invoke Shift Control V, without you having to do anything, all the themings and all the levels have been restored. So that's what I mean by sticky themes. So it can come in really handy when you have a lot. So it takes a long time to get some of these things set up, just so. But let's say, so you're always, once again, your bludgeon though is if I just want to get everything back. Don't forget about the MTA reset under the command palette. MTA reset. Okay, so now everything has gone back, and now if we cycle it, we've basically, in effect, turned off sticky themes. So the next time we start up Shift Control V, nothing happens because there's no state anymore. So that's another way. It could almost be a curse if you have a really elaborate setup. Every time you invoke Shift Control V, all of a sudden 10 of your editors are changing color. If you don't want that, I would do the MTA reset. So that's sticky themes. So I want to sort of conclude with some technical stuff. I figure if you made it this far, you're really interested, I guess. But so let's just sort of look and see what's happening behind the scenes. I'm going to apply a couple themes here. I'm going to do something by file type and something like a Choco on all the coffees. Let me put on the JS my favorite fairy floss, and let me put on this on this one a file, an editor level. Let's say we haven't tried that one yet. An editor level Dracula. Okay, which means that, so this one is not affected because that's at the editor level. So if you do a Shift Control I, you can come into this is basically the Chrome. This is the Atom. This is the Chrome associated with Atom. So all the styles are under this Atom styles. And I think we talked about this earlier, but there's a whole bunch of styles. I did not put these on. These are all part of the standard for Atom. And then at the end, though, you will see the ones that we just applied. You have a Choco, a Fairy Floss, and see how it has MTA, that's just stands for multi-theme applicator. We have the scope. We have a file type. We have an editor, and we have two file types. I guess I did the second one as a file type. I thought I did it as a file, but so you can come in and you can see how this is. I just qualify all the items with the particular scope, and then like a really good command is you want to make sure like this is the active editor. Is if you come down here and you say Atom .workspaces, get active text editor, get element. Okay, we can even look at it in the so here's like the active editor, and you can see how it has a Chaco at the file type, and it has an editor level Dracula, which is why it's appearing as Dracula. You gotta whatever is highlighted in the DOM goes blue here. You can see that it's blue. That's Dracula, and so you know, this is like basically a lot of, you know, basically more or less how I started off with this whole project was I would just come into the DOM and I would load in jQuery, and I would start poking around the DOM, and I would just start tweaking the style sheets and see what happened. So I managed to figure out how all this sort of worked together. So there's, you know, there's really nothing more mysterious, you know, more mysterious than that. The rest of it is mostly just sort of keeping everything in sync and keeping track of everything. All the like if I apply to window one, I do it at this level at panes, I think. So let me just try that. Oops, does that again. Let me just try putting on a window level theme. And let's put on SETI. So we don't see much because we're being overridden. We don't have anything that's exposed at the window level. But if we come down here, you see how that got added, MTA window SETI syntax. And we can see under Atom styles, whoops, at the very bottom, we have the SETI. And this is what I mean about how sometimes like a higher up rule, it's very, very clear. It has a lot of qualifiers on it that says something like the gutter or the line number has to be this particular color. And if that's a very specific rule, and if the one underneath it is sort of just more general, it's not so narrow, this one can take precedence. So that's why all of a sudden sometimes you might see weird effects. Like if you were to look at whatever theme this was, I can't remember now, Chaco. If you were to look at like a basic Chaco as it appeared all by itself, you know, maybe the functions wouldn't be red. They'd be some other color. So, you know, that's not, I guess that's one of the things I want to make clear is that it's not an error in multi-theme applicator. That's sort of a property of having cascading style sheets and not having a shadow DOM. So basically that's all I wanted to say. This already ran a lot longer than what I wanted to say. Where's my presentation? So basically, yeah, don't forget about I want to say in final, we talked about the remove scope. Don't forget about the command palette. There's a couple commands under there that don't have key presses. And we talked a lot about the CSS bleed over. So that's it. Happy theming, and please report any problems to the MTA repository. Thank you.